How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Recently I've seen Squarespace making some really nice, clean and really smart text animations. So today we're going to be breaking down exactly how you can do something super similar. So we're going to be covering these 7 different scenes. I'm going to be showing you all the different techniques that are used within them. By the end of the video, you're going to have a solid understanding on how you can apply some of these techniques into some of your own videos and really elevate some of your edits. So let's just jump right into it. First things first is we're going to get some colors for this project. So what I did was just come over to this website here. It's colors with an extra O in it. And I just came over here to create a palette from a photo. All I did was just dragged and dropped in an image from one of the style frames, and basically it spits back all the different colors inside that image. So what we can do is just come over here and get a screenshot of this, and we can just drag and drop that into After Effects. We can just come up here and call this colors. Now let's make a new composition. So 1920 by 1080, and I'll just call this main comp, and in here I'm just going to start laying out a few adjustment layers. So let's just make sure that our composition settings is 6 seconds. Let's make the first one maybe like 15 frames, and we can just call this scene 1, duplicate it, and this is going to be around, we can duplicate that, and the rest is going to be around 20 frames. Great. All these durations can change, and they will change, but it just kind of gives you a bit of a layout and a bit of a structure for your project. So yeah, that's why I like doing it. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is just come over to scene 2, right click, we're just going to pre-compose this. We can just call this scene 2 comp, and let's just drag and drop this into our pre-comps. In this comp, drag down our colors that we've just brought in and scale this. We can just keep it in the top right. Let's right click, new, and let's bring in a new solid. And we're just going to make it this green here. Now let's just bring in some text that we want to animate. So I'm just going to type out make, Control Alt and Home just to center that anchor point, and I'm just going to center this in the middle like so. Yeah, something like that. Looking pretty good. We can just right click this and we can create shapes from text. We can delete this other layer, and on this make outlines we can just come over here and we can explode this shape into all its different actual shapes. So now we have a letter on each layer. Perfect. Let's start animating these. So I'm going to press P, set a keyframe here, and maybe let's just drag these out a bit, somewhere like that. Let's come back to the start and just drag them down, and we can just offset these a bit just to make them a bit more dynamic. So let's come over to the A, let's bring this up a bit, something like that, and then the E, we can just bring it up as a. Right, so we just press play and that's what's happening. Right, so around here, we want all these to come up. So let's just bring them all up. Great, so now this goes up, down, and then back to its resting spot. I'm just going to select all these keyframes, right click and separate the dimensions. And on this, I'm just going to apply something like, don't worry, I'm going to show you the value editor just so you can copy this. You don't need this plugin to be able to do this. So let's just apply this and you'll be able to see what this does. Let's just apply this across all of these layers. Right, so that's just going a tiny bit too quick. So what we can do is just come to our Y on one of the layers and let's see what's going on. Right, so we want this to come out a bit like that. So it goes up, waits up for a second and then comes down. So that's already looking much better. You just drag this out. Great, that's looking really good. So what we can do is just come over and use this script here called Easy Copy, and this will be in the description as well, fully free. And we can just select those and copy, and we can just ease them onto that. So then we get something like this. Perfect. Right, so we have the basis of that down now. So what we can do is just select all these and then give them a color that we want. Let's just make them all orange, and I'm just going to right click, new, null object, bring it down. We can just delete this, don't need that. And I'm just going to Control Alt Home and then align this in the center. And I'm just going to link all those layers to that null. Now what we can do is just select all these, duplicate it, and then drag them to the top. And we can just recolor these to something like purple, and I'm just gonna select our fill and give it something like that. Great, so now with our null we can actually just bring this up and position it wherever we want. And we can just select all these layers, press U, and now we can adjust where these are landing. So this E isn't working here, so let's just maybe end like that. Great. And now we can just do the same for the other layers, just to make sure that they look nice in the composition. Bring this up a bit, bring this down a bit. And now we can just replicate that process and fill out this whole composition. So I'm just going to do that and then I'll come straight back to you. Right, so now there's just two little gaps here that we want to fill, and we can just select different random layers. So let's just take this A here, and we can just select all these keyframes, and let's just drag this to somewhere like here, and let's just bring this K down a good bit like that. Just gonna take this last M, we're gonna duplicate it, select all the keyframes, relocate it to over here. Right, so we're getting there. We have a really nice start here. So we can just press Control A, select all the layers, and then press U, and we can kind of see what we've made here. We can ignore this layer. We can just make this a dark. So these are all the working layers here that you can see. At the end of this animation, everything kind of transitions to the left hand side, and in order to do that, we're just going to right click, New, Null, and we can just call this Master. We're going to press Control Alt and Home, and let's just align this to the middle. Select all of our nulls here that we've made, and let's just link it to that master. We can press P around here, and now let's just drag everything over to the side like that. Let's just ease this a bit like this, so it comes up and it goes like that. Great. So now let's just select all of our other shape layers individually, like so. Press P on our keyboard, and let's just give it a keyframe on the X and the Y, and then around here we're going to start just randomly spreading them out along the X. So let's say like this. So let's see how that looks. Amazing. So we can just select all these and give them some easing as well, and that's basically the effect there. Right, so what we're going to do is just select all of these layers, maybe a few seconds in, maybe somewhere around here. We're just going to press Control Shift D, and that just splits all the layers. So we can drag these to the top. And now what we can do with this master null on this one, we can just scale this in a good bit, bring it down. Let's just delete the keyframes that had already been on that. Now you get something like that. That's really fluid. And we're just going to cut the composition to somewhere around here. And that is the first scene that we're going to break down. What we can do now is just come back to our main comp. We can just press X on that. In our main comp, we're going to add in a new adjustment layer and just bring it to the top. Maybe let's just give this a red color, and let's just add in a posterized time. Let's just make that 15 frames a second, and you can kind of see now that's looking a lot more like it. Change the duration to somewhere around there. Bam. And now we're going to go into our next scene, which is going to be scene 3 in this composition. So let's do the same thing. Right click, pre-compose, and this is going to be scene 3, and just press OK. Come back into our colors here, and let's just copy this, and we're going to bring this into this scene. You can delete that other layer, and let's right click, new, solid, and we're going to make it that gray background. Right, so now we're going to run through the composition where the text is kind of going from side to side, comes in and then goes out, and it's really nice and really dynamic. So let's recreate that. We're just going to come up to our text, and let's add in something like food. Control Alt and Home, and let's align this to the middle. We're just going to scale this up, and let's just change the fill color to that green. Right, so let's right click this food comp. We're going to pre-comp this, and we can just call this food main, go into it. In our composition settings, we're just going to drop the height just so it's touching the edges, something like that. And we can also bring in the width of it as well, just a tiny bit. We're going to just right click this, and we are going to create shapes from text, and delete that. And now using the motion tools, let's expand all these so we have them all on their own layer. So now we can just come over and type in path, And let's just select a keyframe at the start here on every layer. Great. And then let's just come on a few frames, and on our O here, let's just come down to the bottom, Control T on your keyboard, and let's just bring this in like this. We can come up to the top layer, do the same thing, Control T, and that's going to be set in keyframes so you can see what's happening here. Brilliant. Right, so now we want this F to kind of follow it. So we can just press V on our keyboard and select these, and let's just drag this a bit closer. And select this and drag this closer as well. Great. And now let's do the same for the other side. So on this O, Control T, let's bring this in, and let's get this other path and bring this in. And then on our D, we can just come down, select this. And on this other path, we can just do the same. Select all these keyframes that we've just made and put them in line so you can see what's going on here. Brilliant. We can just select all these keyframes that we've just made, copy them, paste them so it comes, holds for a sec, and then select our initial keyframes and then paste them at the end. And we can just apply some easing to these as well. So that's what we get. So in our scene tree, you can see what's going on, and that's going to work really nicely. So we can actually just composition settings. Let's change the duration to something like 1.5 seconds out, and let's zoom out a bit, and let's do the same for here. Composition settings, and we can just drag all these to the end. Just copy those keyframes, and just so it just does another cycle of that. So it just goes bang, bang, bang. Brilliant. The next thing we're going to do is just come over to our food main, and let's scale this down a good bit, something like that. We're just going to come up and press CC power pin, and let's drag and drop that onto this, and let's just select keyframes here. Move on a bit, come up here to our top left and increase it. And we can do the same on the top right, so there's something similar. So that's coming in like boom. And then we can select this, press the U, and we can just maybe set a keyframe. And then we're going to basically revert it to the other side. And we can just come back again like this. We can just copy these keyframes, paste them again, so it just holds for a sec. And so it goes bam, bam, bam. Yeah, so just something a bit playful. I think that's going to work really well. So let's just drag this out to the end. Use this as our last keyframes, so it's a perfect loop. And the next thing we're going to do is just add in a wave warp, and we can just change the direction to 180, and we can play around with the wave width and something like that. And we can also drop the speed to something like 0.2. We basically have that layer done. We can just make this an orange layer, and we're just going to duplicate it and bring it over here. Same thing, and just bring it to the other side, and we can put all these into a null, and then we can just duplicate this, drag it to the top, give all these a different color just to keep track, and we can just drag that null down and then bring it over to the side and duplicate it again, give it a different color, and bring this up like that, and maybe drag it this way. So we're going to right click, new null, call this master. Same thing again, select all these nulls and link it to this master, and let's just scale this up a good bit. Brilliant. So we can press P on this master, and let's just drag it so it kind of pans in. And the last effect we can do is just come into our first one here, and maybe let's get rid of the two O's so they come in a bit later, and you can see that this makes a really nice transition. Great. So that is basically scene 3, and let's see what we're looking like now. So really happy how all that is looking. Now let's move into scene 4. So let's right click, pre-compose, and let's call this scene 4, and let's jump into it. So We come back and let's just copy our colors and paste them in, and let's right click, new, solid, and let's make this a green color. Now what we're going to do is just add in some text. So let's just say make again, and we can just give this a fill of this light color. Control Alt Tone, center this up and scale it up a good bit. We're just going to right click, create shapes from text, same process, and expand them all so we have them all in their own layer. And what we can do from here now is come up here to our pen tool, and we can just hide these other layers because we don't need them right now. And let's just give this a different color just so we know what we're working with. Have our stroke selected, and we're just going to outline a part of this that we basically want to animate in. So something like this. I'm just going to increase the stroke so it takes up the whole of the object, and I can call this M reveal. What we're going to do is just take this M and make it a track matte of the M reveal, and we're going to come down to this M reveal, add trim paths, bring this end down, and then keyframe the start, go forward a good bit and make it 100%. You can just ease this as well so you can see what's going on. Right, simple. Now all we're going to do is just duplicate these and drag them to the top. We can select these two, pre-compose them, and just put this as M reveal. We can hide that for now. We're left with this, and that's just a duplicate of what we've just made. So we're just going to press U on this shape layer that has the animation on it, and we can delete this first keyframe. So now this just stays constant. We can just invert this mask, and now we can just pre-compose this, call this M fill, and we can reveal this layer, select both of these, pre-compose them, and just call it M. That's what you're getting. Sometimes because of the mask, you'll see that there's a bit of a line here, and you can easily just fix that. You can just come in and just slowly drag up, and that should fix that issue. Right, so let's do that for another letter, and then I feel like you'll get the gist. So I'll just zoom through the other two, but let's just do something for this A here, because I'm going to use two masks here and the process is a tiny bit different. So ignore this M, let's just give it an orange, bring it down to the bottom and get rid of it. Let's give this a brown, and up to our pen tool, we're going to make a mask again, following the shape, and we can just reduce this stroke a good bit on this. Just refine this a bit, and then we can just increase that stroke here and just match it up. The exact same process. We're just going to make this a mask of this track matte of this shape. And that's what you get. Come down, trim paths, bring this down to the bottom, keyframe, and then increase it to 100. Give it some easing, and that's what you get. That's just one part of the letter that I'm going to mask out. I'm going to do it again to another part, so I'm just going to duplicate these and delete that shape layer. So now we're left with something like this, and let's mask out something from like here, something like this, and just try to get it as close as you can to being flush with the other side of that layer. And right, let's just increase this by a tiny bit, and now we're just going to drag this down and do the same thing. I'm going to make the bottom layer a track matte. So as you can see, there's a tiny bit creeping, so something like that could be grand. And we can just come down, trim paths again, and bring this down, keyframe, and something like that. Great. You can always just come back into this path and edit it just to make sure that it's looking all right. Let's just add some easing onto that. Right, so now we want to bring back in the rest of the shape to start off with. So to do that, what we're going to do is we have all these layers here, so let's just make them all brown. And what we can do is pre-compose these bottom two as reveal 01, pre-compose these top two as reveal 02. So now we can just duplicate this one. Let's just call this main. And it's not going to matter because I'm going to just uncomp it now. The reason why I'm doing that is just so you can understand what is happening here. So now I have, let's hide this. I still have these two layers and I have this unhidden. Come over here. I'm just going to uncomp these layers. So I have our original mask here, and now I just need to get this shape layer here, and let's bring this out. Let's just pre-compose. We're just going to show both of these, and we're just going to pre-compose these two shapes. Before we pre-compose them, we're just going to press U, come all the way down to the end, and you can see what these are doing. And let's just delete these two initial keyframes, pre-compose them as reveal fill, and then on this A layer we can just make this a track matte at that, and then just invert it, and that's going to give us something like this. And that's basically how you would do that. It's very, very far-fetched, and if you know a better way, please let me know, but that's the only way that I could find out how you could do it. So yeah, I'm going to do the other two shapes now, and then I'll come back to you. So we have 3 of the 4 shapes done here, and as you can see, that's how it's looking. I'm going to just do something different for the last one, and I'll just show you what I'm going to do. So basically I can just hide these layers. I'm just going to have our shape layer here, and let's just come up to our pen tool, and let's just do an outline around the whole shape. We can just decrease this a good bit. Select this. Great. And let's just increase this a bit like that. And same thing, we're just going to trim paths. And this time we're just going to only animate the end. So let's select the keyframe here, and then we're going to just go like this. Come down to our E layer and then make it a track matte, and you'll see what happens. Great, so now there's a little bit of a hole here that we need to fill, and all we need to do is just come to our shape layer, in our shape path, maybe around here, let's give it a keyframe, and then here, you just press V, and let's just bring this to where it belongs. We can ease that as well, drag this out, and ease these too. Great, so now we can just pre-comp all that, and just call this E, give all these layers a color, and that's what we have. Brilliant. Right, so now we can just attach all them to a null, and let's scale this null up a good bit like that. We're just going to bring it over to the side here, and then press P, and then towards here we're going to just bring it all the way to like here. Let's make it a tiny bit quicker. Right, and that just gives it a nice little effect like that. So let's just come back to our main comp and see how everything is looking. Right, let's jump into the next scene. So this one is pretty basic, and we're just going to pre-compose it, and let's call it scene 5. Let's give this a new solid. Let's make it green. Let's just come back to our last comp, copy and paste these colors over, and let's add in some text. So let's say winning, and Control Alt Hold, something like that. Is looking good. We can delete this, and let's give this a orange color. Great, you can just color this side as well to orange, and let's just duplicate this and bring it to the side, and same thing. Great. We're just gonna select all these and attach it to a null, and then we're just gonna duplicate them, drag it to the top, and we can just bring this up and position it somewhere where we want. Something like that. Same thing again, duplicate it, bring it up, and then we can just select the last 2 of the duplications, bring it all the way there, and we can just bring these down. So we're going to just right click, new, null, call this the master, Control Alt Hold, and then let's align it to the middle, and then let's link all of these nulls to that master. On all of our nulls, we're just going to select them all individually and press the position keyframe, come to the end, and then just add in just subtle positions on each of these like that. Great, so now you're left with something like this. Really simple. Yeah, now let's select all of the layers that we've just made, come to around here, and let's Control Shift D and drag it all to the top. So now we basically split them. On our master null here, if we can just scale this up a little bit. And yeah, let's just bring it in super tight. And we're gonna press our scale keyframe, come on a bit and scale out. And let's just add in some easing. And that just creates a nice little effect like that. If you want to just take this a bit further, we can just select all these layers, drag them out a bit, select these layers now, and we can just duplicate them, bring them to the top. Maybe let's bring them to the bottom just to keep things neat. Bring it over, and we can just go to our master null. Let's delete these scales. Actually, let's just delete the last scale, and this is the one that we need it to be in the right position. So let's just go position. So we have a position and a scale keyframe on this, and we can just maybe bring this over like that. We can just ease these as well. So now you're getting a bit of side movement and then a scale back. And yeah, that effect is really simple. So now let's see how far we've gotten. Right, that's looking really good. Into the next one, and what we're going to do is either open up Photoshop, or you can do this also on an iPad, but whatever you feel most comfortable with, just write out a few random different words, make it look as rough as possible, and yeah, that's basically how we're going to pull this effect off. So in here, I've basically written out a load of different random words on my iPad, and I've had them all in their own layer. Once you have that, you can just save that out and jump into After Effects and basically animate these. So in our scene 6, we're just going to right click and we're going to pre-compose and make this scene 6. Jump in here, you can delete that, and let's just grab our colors and let's right click, new solid, and let's make this a gray background. Drag and drop in your PSD file, and we can just uncomp all of these like so. Now we can start animating them. So once I know which are these two layers, I can just highlight these and let's bring them to the top, because we're gonna animate those last. Right, so I have all these aligned in a row, and what we can do is let's just get this circle there and put it over something like this. Great. And let's just drag this down, and on all these layers we're just going to select them and we're just going to add in a null. Actually, we're just going to right click, new null object, center it, and now let's just link all these layers apart from that X into this null. So we can just scale these up, and as you can see, we have full control. So what we're going to do is just scale them up a bit and come here, press P, and let's set a keyframe, and let's just drag this all the way down. Easy. And then we're just going to add in some easing. So around here, we're going to select all these layers, Control Shift D just to split them. Let's drag these to the bottom. And what we're going to do now is just come up to one of these layers. Let's just say this circle layer. We're going to right click, layer styles, and color overlay. In our color overlay, we're just going to give this, bring our colors to the top, sorry, and we're just going to give this a green color. And we can just select that color overlay and basically apply it to all of these layers. Brilliant. Half of them are that color and half of them are the other. And we can actually delete this null and select all these layers and link it back to this main null here. Right, so now they're all controlled under one null. Now we just need to change the color for these ones. So we can just take a layer style off any of these layers and paste it. And we're just going to come down and layer styles. And let's make this a gray. And before we go any further, let's just bring this down. We're going to right click, new solid, and let's make it that green. And then just drag this to where it starts. So we can just copy this layer style and paste it onto these. Last thing we can do now is just add in one more null, and we can just call this scale, and we're just going to link this null to that scale. Give it a keyframe, And here we can either drag it out or drag it in. Let's drag it out for now. And let's just give it some easing. So it goes bam. And I actually think I'm going to scale it in. So it does something like that. We can just reposition these. If you want to add to this effect, you can also maybe come to like the layer, the eggs layer, and let's just select this. Let's just mask out this line here. We can invert that line and we can select our path keyframe, and then a bit forward we can fully reveal it, just so things are moving. And then maybe for this layer here, we can have it fully gone, just so something is actually appearing into the scene. And yeah, you can do so much with that, but that's obviously really rough. But yeah, this is how everything is looking. And that is this water evaporation effect. And yeah, let's just break it down. So we're going to right click this, pre-compose, and make sure that it's layer 7 or scene 7, sorry. Come into it and let's right click new. Before we do that, just get our colors, right click new solid, make it a green, and then we're going to add in some text, and we're just going to center this and scale it up. Right click, create new shapes from text, delete that, and we can just expand these shapes here. Right, come a few frames in, we're just going to press position, and then here we're going to have these all fall out of the scene, and we can just ease these as well, so something like that. And now maybe let's just extend this composition a bit, just to give us a bit more time to work with. We're just going to stagger these like this. So now just on one of our layers, we can apply all these effects to it. So first things first, let's add in a turbulent displace. As you can see, that kind of makes it all a bit bogey, which is exactly what we're looking for. So something like that is fine. Let's just bring in a fast box blur, and let's just put this over the turbulent displace. Next thing we can do is just add in a roughen edges. And as you can see, that just defines that blur a bit more and really helps sell this effect. So the more you blur it, the more of that effect you get. And you can also play around with this. So it goes like that, which is exactly what we want. So we want this to all start taking place around here. So what we can do is set a keyframe and all the different components that we want to control. So let's say our blur radius, our amount, size, and our border and edge sharpness. Just press U here, and we can come back to here, and now let's just zero all of these out. Great. And the same with these two. So all that just takes into effect then after a few seconds. So you can fully mess around with this as much as you want. So I think it's our turbulent displace is just a bit too much. So let's see. Yeah, that's looking good. We can change the size of that. Now what we can do is just come down to our effects here, and we can basically select each of them, copy, and then at the point where we want this effect to take place on all our other layers, we can just paste it. So paste, paste, and paste. So now it comes down, and then all of them are affected like that. And that is the last scene there. So let's see how everything is looking. That is all for today's tutorial. That first scene, I will be breaking it down over on my Patreon. The only reason I'm doing that is just because there's so many different ways that you can pull off this effect, and a lot of them aren't in After Effects. You can use Cinema 4D, Blender, or Newton, which is a plugin in After Effects, but it's like 250 quid. So yeah, I can't imagine it being much value. But for those who are interested, I am going to break it down in my Patreon, and that's going to be in the description below. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed today's video or if you didn't. I think there's a lot of handy techniques there that, yeah, you can really use in some of your videos. So that being said, thanks very much for watching. Cheers.